Hello friends, let's continue our discussion on minerals, what they are, as a way to introducing ourselves to what these particular or what these category of materials mean. Now, it is my approach that I usually spend few minutes of a given lecture just recapitulating what was covered in the previous one, so that we would have a continuity of thoughts. So, to that end, we will also do the same in this lecture and the lectures that will be following in the days to come. Now, in the previous lecture, we saw that the term mineral is used in three different contexts. So, one of the context is the context of food, wherein in order to categorize the chemical substances that are necessary for the healthy functioning of the body, we use the term mineral. And the other context is the context of exploiting a given resource that is available on the surface of the earth or the earth crust. So, it is purely from an economic standpoint, and if we need to exploit these resources that are available to us for our welfare, then these materials that are available on the surface of the earth that are of some economic value to us and that can be used by us with some economic significance and that is of benefit to us, we refer to them as minerals. So, apart from the context of food, the other context is the economic context, the context of an industrial scale extraction of a given material that is available on the surface of the earth. We saw that this is a 14th century term. So, this term was first being used, or it came into being in around 14th century, and this is where we get our name mineral from. So, meaning a substance that is mined out. So, minerals are substances that are mined out. So, when we talk about extracting a given substance from the surface of the earth or from the earth crust, what we are essentially talking about is mining it from the surface of the earth. So, these substances, because we need to establish a mine in order to exploit these resources, these substances that are available on the earth crust, we refer to them as minerals. Now, we saw the technical description of minerals are slightly different from the description that is of largely used in industrial setting or from an economic standpoint. So, that the difference that or the description that brings about the difference in a technical setting and the economic setting is that in a technical setting, as opposed to an industrial scale discussion, so the description of minerals in a technical setting as opposed to an industrial scale description involves an additional feature, that is, in a technical setting we would not consider those substances and minerals which come from dead animals and plants. So, in a technical definition of a mineral, it will not include dead animals and plants. So, if you go by a purely technical definition of minerals, then in that case coal and petroleum products. So, crude oil or the fundamental precursor of the petroleum and other petroleum products will not be a part of mineral if you go by the technical definition of mineral. However, the reason in our syllabus we have given some consideration for coal is largely because of its economic significance. So, in our syllabus, even though we are having a technical discussion on minerals, even though according to the technical description, mineral should not ideally include dead animals and plants, since coal is of a significant importance to us, particularly in our landscape in India, coal plays a significant role in our economic setting. We have included it despite the contradiction it places on the technical description of minerals. So, this particular technical description, the one that differentiates itself from industrial scale description or an economical standpoint description, this description came around, or this definition of minerals that does not include dead animals and plants, that confines itself to inorganic compounds. So, this description of minerals, it came about in the 15th century. So even though the term minerals that included all the substance of any value that are present on the surface of the earth or earth crust that can be mined out were categorized as minerals in the 14th century. Few 100 years later, a distinction was made that excluded the valuable substances that had components of dead animals and plants in them. So the technical discussion or technical description of the minerals, it came about 100 years later after the term mineral was largely being used. So in the 15th century, we have this technical description of minerals, and it largely means naturally occurring inorganic compounds. Now, in addition to this, we saw that the technical description of mineral largely is based on the distinguishing features of the minerals that separates it from other substances that are found on the earth crust. So we saw that minerals are naturally occurring. They do not include dead animals and plants. Then it means that we are talking about inorganic materials, and since they have a definite chemical composition, we are talking about compounds. Now we also saw that even though they have definite chemical composition, they are in no means fixed, meaning when you compare the chemical composition of one mineral with regards to other mineral, even though the overall formulae, the stoichiometric relation may be the same, the components that are involved, the elements that are involved might vary, and even in some instances the stoichiometric relation between the metals and the non-metals, they also vary. So what I mean by that is, if we consider the inorganic compound to comprise of a metallic segment and a non-metallic segment, and they are present in a definite proportion for each individual minerals, this proportion need not be the same across the different minerals. Even if the proportion is the same, even if we have two metal ions combined with one non-metal ions, these metal ions need not be similar across the different minerals. So thereby we have the feature of the mineral that states the chemical composition is rather definite. We have a well-defined chemical composition, but it is not fixed. It varies with the different minerals that we are studying. Now in the previous lecture, we also saw that one of the other characterizing features of or distinguishing feature of the minerals is that it has long range regular arrangement of the fundamental entities, which can be atoms, ions, and so on. So in addition to all these distinguishing features, minerals or the fundamental entities of the minerals are regularly arranged over a very long range. So we saw that this long range is in the order of 10 to the power 4 times. So what we mean by that is, if we have a regular arrangement, say some sort of an arrangement like this, and this is established over say 1 unit length, then this arrangement should extend over the scale of 10 to the power 4. Only then we can refer to it as a long range arrangement. So whatever arrangement you see, whatever seemingly regular arrangement you see locally, it should be extended over a range of 10 to the power 4 times. Only then we can categorize it as long range arrangement. Now what if these arrangements are not a long range one? What if they are not extended to the scale of 10 to the power 4 times? What if they are extended to say 10 to the power 10 times, or say 10 to the power 2 times? Not as much as 10 to the power 4 times, but less than that. There is a regular arrangement, but it is not a very long range arrangement. It is not to the scale of 10 to the power 4 times. Then what would be the name for it? So again, it's quite straightforward. We can refer to them as short range arrangement. So short range regular arrangement. In minerals, they are referred to as mineraloids. So these are the with this material or this minerals wherein the range is not to the extent of long range, but it is a short range regular arrangement, then those minerals are referred to as mineraloids. So the minerals and mineraloids, they have more or less the same characterizing or distinguishing features. They are inorganic compounds They have a definite chemical composition, of course not fixed. However, the only differentiating feature is that they don't exhibit a long range regular arrangement, but rather a short range regular arrangement. And it can also be stated that they are quite amorphous in nature if we call the long range arrangement as crystalline. So if you refer to as the long range arrangement as crystalline, these are amorphous in nature, and even though they have some regular arrangement, they are just established over a short range when compared to this 10 to the power 4 times regular arrangement of the fundamental entities. So this is one category of minerals. The mineraloids are a category of minerals. The only difference is that they don't exhibit a long range regular arrangement of the fundamental entities. Now, in this characterizing features, we saw what, or we quantified rather, what long range is, but we are yet to look into the regular arrangement. Now, I understand that for many of you, the crystal structure, what a crystal means, all those things, I don't know, maybe you would have learned it in your school days or in your first year in physics, I don't really know. But to my understanding, there is nothing wrong in refreshing your understanding of these concepts that are necessary for this course and also for the course on physical metallurgy. So I will take the liberty of helping you refresh your understanding of these particular concepts, which are fundamental to our understanding of a material at the atomistic scale. So therefore, again, if you are quite familiar with it, if you think you know a lot about it and you are quite comfortable with the arrangement of atoms, crystal structures, Miller indices and Miller-Bavai indices, everything you are comfortable with it. So of course you are, you can skip these lectures or you can just skim through these lectures, okay? Nevertheless, it is my intention, or I would like to refresh, to jog your memory on this understanding of these structures. So therefore, I would spend some time on helping you refresh your understanding of the arrangement of atoms. So we saw in the moments before that the long range, how can we quantify the long range, and now let us get into the aspect of regular arrangement. Let us see what the term regular arrangement means when we are talking about the positions of the fundamental entities. Now, often times I might replace the term fundamental entities with atoms. So please note that depending on the mineral we are considering, these atoms might be ions. Okay. Now, to understand what the regular arrangement is, or regular arrangement of atoms mean, we can approach it from different standpoints. We can look into it from different standpoints. However, to my understanding, the best way of, or to my knowledge, the best way of looking at the regular arrangement of the atoms is that whenever you say that this particular material has a regular arrangement of the fundamental entities, it has the atoms or ions in this materials are regularly or periodically arranged, it means that from a given atom, you would be able to build, or you will be able to know the positions of all the other atoms. Let me repeat, when I say that this particular material, this particular mineral, this particular metal, in these materials, the atoms are regularly or periodically arranged, but given also in the long range order, it means that from a given atom, I will be able to understand, or I will be able to determine the positions of all the other atoms. So this is what this is what the characterizing definition of the regular arrangement means. So from one atom, you will be able to know where the other atoms are positioned. So let us see what it means in a two-dimensional case. We will start from a simpler two-dimensional case. So what does regular arrangement or periodic arrangement in two-dimension mean? Regular or periodic arrangement in two-dimension mean. So like I said, according to, or one way of looking at the regular arrangement is, when you start from a given atom, you will know where the positions of all the other atoms are in a given crystalline system. So that is one way of looking at the regular arrangement. So if in a two-dimensional setup, if I begin with one atom, say A, then according to the description, if the atoms in this material are regularly arranged, then from A, I would be able to ascertain the positions of all the other atoms that are present in this two-dimensional system. So we have a two-dimensional system. In this system, the fundamental entities, say atoms, are regularly arranged, and now we know the position of A. Since this material, this two-dimensional material exhibits a regular arrangement, it means that from A, I will be able to ascertain the position of all the other atoms in the system, or all the other atoms in a given crystal of this given crystal. So in order to do that, what I need is two vectors. I need to know about two vectors. So vectors are a mathematical argument wherein you have, or a mathematical entity wherein it has a direction and a magnitude associated with it. So in vectors, in addition to as opposed to scalars wherein you just consider the magnitude of a parameter, in vectors you have both a combination of magnitude and direction. This is something that you would have learned in your previous years. Now, when we talk about vectors, it is possible for us to consider the direction in numerous ways, and one of the way in which we can consider the direction of a given vector, particularly when you have a couple of vectors, when you have two vectors, the way one can consider the direction of this vector is by considering the direction in relation to each other. So let me repeat, vectors are parameters that comprises of a magnitude and a direction. Now it is possible for us to talk about the directions of a vector independently. Say the vector B is pointing in this direction and the vector C is pointing in this direction. So it is one way of describing the directions of the vector. Now the other way of describing the direction of a vector is in relation to each other. So if I have vector say B and C, when I talk about these directions of the vectors in relation to each other, what I am essentially talking about is the angle between them. So if I assume the angle theta, or if I consider the angle theta in addition to this vector, what I am essentially considering is, in addition to the magnitude of the vectors B and C, since I am also talking in terms of theta, essentially then I am also considering the directions of the vector. So what we are trying to do is, we are trying to determine the positions of all the atoms in a given two-dimensional crystal from a given position, from a given atom. Now for that we need two vectors, and since we are talking these two vectors, or we are considering these two vectors in relation to each other, meaning we are considering its direction in relation to each other, we need two vectors and the angle between them. So when we have considered these two vectors and the angle between them, then depending on the relation between the vectors and the angle between them, we will be able to identify the positions of all the other atoms from A in a given two-dimensional crystal. So what I mean by that is, so we have a position of atoms A. So this A is capital A is the position of the atom. So let us consider two vectors which are A and the small a and small b. So now let me for the purpose or for the benefit of using a larger landscape, let me start with A here. Now we have considered two vectors A and B, and the direction of these vectors are considered or treated in relation to each other, so we need to consider the angle between them. Now let us assume that in the first case the magnitude of these vectors are equal. So that means A, the length of A and the length of B is equal, and the angle between them is 90 degrees. So the magnitude is equal and the angle between them is 90 degrees. So in that case, if I impose such a condition, so let me use red color here to distinguish the position of the atoms. So we have two vectors and the magnitude of them or the magnitude of these vectors are equal, and the angle between these vectors is 90 degrees, meaning these two vectors are perpendicular to each other. If we assume such a condition, then by imposing such a condition, we will be able to plot the position of the neighboring atoms with reference to the atom A. So in those cases, the position of the neighboring atoms or the adjacent atoms will be like this. Now since we have this establishes an atom along with its neighbor. Now we have to have a long range arrangement, meaning the same should be extended for a very long range, meaning whatever condition or whatever vectors the A has, the same vector will be applicable for this atom here. So only then we will be able to establish a long range arrangement. So whatever vectors categorizes the position of these neighbors with respect to A will also categorize or characterize the position of the neighbors with respect to these atoms. So then if we use the same vectors A and B for this atom here, then the corresponding position of the atoms with respect to this atom here, say A prime, will be this and this. And if you keep on proceeding it or keep on like replicating whatever the relation of, or replicating the relation of these vectors A and B with respect to a given position of the atoms, you will ultimately end up with the arrangement of the atoms that is of this sort. Now we can do the same for each and every atoms, and ultimately when you proceed with this approach for the scale of 10 to the power 4 times, then you will ultimately be able to establish the arrangement of the atoms in a given crystal. So what we have done is we have just considered an atom, and we have introduced two vectors that are of definite relations. So two vectors, they are of same magnitude, and they are separated, or the angle between them is 90 degrees. By imposing such nature of the vectors, we are now able to identify the way the atoms in a given crystal is arranged. Now, this position of the atoms that are rendered by the vectors we have considered, these are referred to as lattice points. And the overall arrangement of the atoms that we kept after replicating or after introducing these vectors and the angle between them for each and every atom, the overall arrangement of the atoms that we get, or overall arrangement of these entities that we get after imposing these vectors and the angle between them for each and every individual atom. So we got this arrangement, we got this positions of the atoms by imposing these vectors and the angle between them for each and every fundamental entity. And if we keep on doing that, the overall arrangement of the atoms that we get is referred to as lattice mesh. So since we are talking about a two-dimensional setup, we have now described what a lattice point is. So lattice point is a point which corresponds to a given original point, and that is in relation to the given original point through the vectors and the angle between them. So here A and A1 are lattice points, and we have arrived at A1 by introducing these vectors and the angle between them. So A double prime, so this is A prime and A double prime are the lattice points in addition to A. So A is a given lattice point, and from that lattice point we are now able to identify two other lattice points, that is A double prime and A prime. And from there we will be able to, by replicating the operations that we have, or the conditions that we have imposed for identifying A prime and A double prime, we will be able to establish the entire lattice mesh. And each in the lattice mesh, in a given lattice mesh, the positions of the atoms are referred to as the lattice points. The points that we have identified through imposing the vectors and the angle between them, we refer to it as lattice point. So just to give a quick overview, what we mean by regular arrangement is that from a given atom, you will be able to establish in a regular arrangement, a material that exhibits regular arrangement from a given atom, you will be able to ideally ascertain what are the positions of the different atoms in a given crystal. And the way to do is by introducing two vectors and considering its direction by the angle between them. And in this example, we saw that when we consider two vectors of equal magnitude and the angle between them to be 90 degrees, then ideally what we have done is we have now we have been able to find the positions of all the other atoms that reflect the crystal of the material that exhibits regular arrangement. So these positions of the atoms is what you will find if you zoom in and see the position of the atom in a regular arranged, or in a material where the atoms or entities are regularly arranged. So theoretically, by imposing certain conditions, we were able to identify the position of the atoms from a given atom. So these positions of the atoms, which we were able to identify by imposing certain conditions for a given atoms, we refer to them as lattice points. So lattice points are nothing but the position of the atoms of fundamental entities that we were able to ascertain, or that exhibits or that shows the regular arrangement of the entities in a given crystal. And the overall arrangement as a whole since we are considering or talking in terms of 2D, it is referred to as the lattice mesh. Now, this relation here, so whatever relation of that we have considered here, it is rather restrictive. We cannot expect all the different materials to follow this particular relation, that is equal in magnitude or equivalence in the magnitude of the vectors that we have considered. So there can be some changes in the relation between these vectors. So here what we have considered is just one aspect or one category of crystals wherein the magnitude of the vectors are equal and the angle between them are 90 degrees. So these in 2 dimension we refer to them as square crystal, and the reason we refer to it as square is because, again, we are purely theoretical discussion, because we are restricting ourselves to 2 dimension, and very rarely we have in nature 2-dimensional materials. So this is for our understanding. We will be basing our 3-dimensional arguments from this. So therefore this discussion is purely theoretical. It's for our for the refreshing of our understanding of the crystalline arrangements. So even though you might not have heard of square crystals or something of that sort, the term, the reason why we use square is because of this relation between the 2 vectors that we have considered. So these 2 vectors, they have definite or they have equal magnitude, and they are separated, or the angle between them is 90 degrees, and therefore we refer to them as 2-dimensional square crystals. If you see a 2-dimensional crystal which is wherein the atoms are arranged in this manner, so 2-dimensional, I mean a crystal that is just that comprises of just one layer of atoms, and that is in plane in nature and comprises of one layer of atoms, and in that layer the atoms are arranged in this manner such that the vectors between that characterizes its neighbors, the magnitude of these vectors are equal and the angle between them is 90 degrees, then we refer to them as 2-dimensional square crystal. The reason we refer to them as 2-dimensional square crystal is because just by considering the square here, just these 4 fundamental entities of these 4 atoms, just by considering them and replicating them for the range of 10 to the power 4 times or close to it, you would be able to build, or you will be able to construct your own 2-dimensional crystal. So based on this particular set of atoms, these 4 atoms and the way they are arranged, and based on that, you, by regularly repeating it, you would be able to construct your own 2-dimensional crystal. And that's the reason why this 4 atoms or 4 ion that has the characteristic features to represent the entire crystal is referred to as the unit mesh. So we saw in a 2-dimensional setting, it is possible for us from a given atom to identify the arrangement of all the atoms. So the arrangement of all the atoms and its position, we refer to it as the lattice points. So the positions of each of these atoms we refer to it as the lattice points, and the entire arrangement, this lattice point comprising, or the entire arrangement that we get by imposing these vectors and the overall arrangement that we get, we refer to that as lattice mesh. And this entire arrangement of the atoms, it is reflective of the 4 atoms that are identified here. These 4 atoms, the entire way these atoms are arranged can be built by considering just these 4 atoms. Just by replicating these 4 atoms, you will be able to construct the entire 2-dimensional crystal. Therefore, these 4 atoms are referred to as the unit mesh. So we have considered the definition of lattice points, we have considered the definition of lattice mesh, and we have now seen what a unit mesh is. Unit mesh is nothing but the smallest number of atoms that reflect the arrangement of atoms in the entire crystal. So here the smallest number of atoms is 4. If you consider that, then by replicating of the arrangement of these 4 atoms, you will be ultimately able to recreate the arrangement of the atoms in a 2-dimensional crystals. And since the nature of this unit mesh is in the form of square, we refer to it as the in a 2-dimensional case, we refer to it as the square mesh. So we have square mesh, but in a 2-dimension when these conditions are satisfied, that is the distance between the atoms. If you consider in a vector form, the magnitude of the vector are equal, and if these vectors are separated by 90 degrees, then we have established a square mesh or a square two-dimensional crystal. Now let us consider other possibilities between the relation or other possibilities in which or possibilities wherein we could, or the different possibilities using which we can relate these two vectors. So one of the other possibilities is that the magnitude of these vectors are not equal, but the angle between them continues to remain the same. So in that case, what would happen is, so we begin with our atom A. Now the magnitude of these vectors are different. So let us assume the magnitude of vector A is greater than magnitude of vector B. Then the unit cell or unit mesh rather will be of this form. So since again the angle between these two vectors are 90 degrees, with relation to atom A, you would end up with the positions of atom A prime and A double prime, something like this. And if you keep on repeating this operation that you have adopted for the case of A, if you keep on proceeding with that, you will find the positions of the atom of the subsequent or the atoms that corresponds to A prime will be like this, and for A double prime it will be like this, and so on and so forth. So this will render an arrangement of the fundamental entities that are quite different from the square mesh, that are quite different from the arrangement that we saw when the magnitude of the vectors are equal. Now when we consider the unit mesh of this particular arrangement, wherein the magnitude of vector A is greater than the magnitude of vector B, then it is easy for us to realize that this particular arrangement of atoms, that is indicative of the overall arrangement of the atoms in a given crystal, reflect a shape that is known to us, that is a rectangle. Therefore, unit mesh of this arrangement of the atoms, we refer to it as the rectangle mesh. So we saw, depending on the magnitude of the vectors, that allows us to identify the positions of the atoms in a given regular arrangement of the atoms or in a given crystals. We will be able to have, at least in this case, two different arrangements. When the magnitude of the vectors are equal, we have square mesh. If the magnitude of the vectors are not equal, but still the angle between them is 90 degrees, as in the previous case, we will be having a rectangle mesh. But nevertheless, by replicating the operation that we have pursued for the atom A, by replicating it for A double prime and A prime and keeping on doing that, you will be able to establish a lattice mesh, and each and individual position of the atoms in this given mesh, we refer to that as lattice points. So we will be able to establish, for a given relation between the magnitude of the vectors and the angle between them, we would be able to establish by a lattice mesh, and we will be able to identify the lattice points. However, depending on the nature of the unit mesh, how the unit mesh, the configuration of the unit mesh looks like, the overall crystalline structure varies. In case of the square mesh, we saw the magnitude of the vectors are equal. In case of the rectangle mesh, the magnitudes of the vectors are not equal, but we still have the angle between them to be 90 degrees. So these are two of the ways of arranging the atoms or any ions in a two-dimensional crystal in a regular manner. So we saw what a regular arrangement means, and in that regular arrangement we saw based on the description of the way the magnitude of the vectors are related, we are able to establish two different arrangement of the crystals. Now it is also possible for us to have a third arrangement of the crystals. Here the values or the magnitude of the vectors can continue to be unequal, and now the angle between them is less than 90 degrees. So we can also have a condition like this, wherein the magnitude of the vectors are not equal, as in the case of rectangular mesh, and the angle between them is not equal to 90 as in the case of, so in the case of rectangular and square mesh, the angle between them was 90. Here, the angle between them is less than 90. So in that case, if we begin with an atom A, like in the previous case, now we have two different vectors A and B, and the angle between them is not or less than 90 degrees. So we can have a provision like this. Rather, we can assume the vectors to be like this, and here we can have the atoms, the positions of the atoms A prime and A double prime as something like this. Now when we continue to do that, if we continue to proceed with this, so for this you will need you will proceed with the same operation that you have conducted for A in order to identify the positions of all the other atoms. And then if you keep on doing that, if you keep on building up on the positions of the atoms, so if you consider an atom here and you consider or you impose the condition of inequality in the magnitude of the vectors that you have considered and the angle between them is less than 90 degrees, you will soon realize that you will end up with a crystal structure that is of not a rectangular form, but with a rectangular crystal structure with an atom in between them. The unit mesh that we would have will be a rectangular unit mesh, but with an entity in between them. So instead of, in addition to or apart from considering these in this manner, building up from A and constructing this, it might seem quite difficult. But if you consider a setup like this, say for instance, you consider a square mesh with an atom in between, and you keep on replicating it. So essentially we have a square mesh but an atom in between. Now instead of considering your vectors, these as your vectors, that is A and B as your vectors, it is possible for us to consider these two as our vectors. If we consider these two instead of blue, if we consider these red as our vectors, A and B, then you could see that the magnitude of these vectors are not equal, and the angle between them theta is less than 90. So similar vector you can introduce for all the other atoms. So you can introduce these vectors for all the other atoms. So you are not changing anything, you are introducing, you are again replicating the same operation here. So by replicating the same operation, you are now able to introduce, or you are now able to identify or realize a crystal structure that is different from the previous rectangular mesh. So this crystal structure, this mesh is different from rectangular because it has an atom or an entity at the center of the rectangular mesh. So here we have a rectangular mesh, and here we have a mesh which is, even though at superficial level it has a rectangular shape to it, in addition to the atoms that occupy the corners of the rectangle, we have another atom that is at the center of it. So if this is primitive, we can refer to this rectangular mesh as primitive. Now this could be referred to as complex rectangular mesh. So what we have essentially done is, by varying the relation between the magnitude of the vector and considering the angle between them to be less than 90 degrees, it is possible for us to establish a lattice plane. And in this lattice plane, the lattice points are arranged in such a way that they are reflective of a rectangular mesh, but a complex rectangular mesh wherein in addition to the atoms at the corners, we have an atom at the center. So essentially what we have done is, we have considered two vectors and we are playing around with the relation between its magnitude and angle between them. So when we have equivalence in magnitude and the angle is 90 degree, we have square mesh. So by replicating the square mesh, we can establish the atomic arrangement in an entire square crystal. When the magnitude of these vectors are not equal, we end up with a rectangular mesh. By replicating this rectangle, you will be able to establish or identify the arrangement of atoms in an entire rectangular crystal. Now we saw this rectangular crystal can be primitive and complex. In case of primitive, you just have atoms at the corner of the rectangles. In case of complex, in addition to the corners, you have atoms at the center. And now even this arrangement can be brought about just by considering two vectors and the angle between them. The only difference is here, similar to rectangles, the magnitude of the vectors are different. However, in rectangle, the angle between them is 90 degrees. In primitive rectangle, rather, the angle between them is 90 degrees. In complex rectangle, the angle between them is less than 90 degrees. Now, let us consider a case wherein the angle between the, so we will follow the similar relation between the magnitude of the vectors, and let the angle between them now be greater than 90 degrees. Now what we have is, in such a case, let us begin with an atom like this and impose the vector that is separated or that has an angle that is greater than 90 degrees, and the magnitude of vector A and B are different. Now when we impose such a condition, the position of the atoms A prime and A double prime will be something like this, and we repeat this numerical operation, then we would find that we are imposing the A vector in this manner, and there will be the position of the other atom, and if you impose a condition here, this will be the position of the other atom. So when you keep on doing it, so you will end up with a lattice of this form, and these are the lattice points. When you have a condition like this, you have a lattice of this form, and these are the lattice points. And now when you want to consider its unit mesh, you just have to consider these four atoms, and these four atoms are in the form, or they are in the form of a parallelogram. So what you ultimately establish is a crystal structure that is, or a parallelogram like crystal structure. So you have a crystal structure that is indicative of a parallelogram. The unit mesh of this crystal structure is a parallelogram, and in order to bring about this parallelogram, all we need to do is consider that the magnitude of these vectors are not equal and the angle between them are greater than 90 degrees. So now, as of we have seen four different lattice planes. So four different unit meshes and four different crystal arrangements in 2 dimensions. So one is square, where the magnitude of the vectors are equal and the angle between them of 90 degrees. So the reason we call it a square is because when you consider the unit mesh, when you consider a short range or a small arrangement of atoms that if replicated would render us the entire crystal, so that is in the form of a square. Therefore we refer to it as unit mesh, and ultimately because it has a shape of the square, we refer to it as the square crystal. And now when we compromise on the equivalence of the magnitude of the vectors, then we end up with a rectangular crystal, and the unit mesh of this crystal is in the form of rectangle, and that's the reason we refer to it as the rectangular crystal. Again, all these discussions are restricted to 2 dimensions, and that's the reason we use the term lattice mesh, lattice points and unit mesh. Now, if we again compromise in the angle between these two vectors, instead of considering it to be 90 degrees, if we assume it to be less than 90 degrees, now this is an ideal description of such a condition. So if you assume it to be less than 90 degrees, we will be able to establish a lattice mesh and a corresponding lattice points, wherein even though the unit mesh is of a rectangular shape, it is rather complex because it has an additional atom or additional entity at the center of it. Now, when you, instead of considering the angle between the vectors to be instead of considering it to be less than 90 degrees, if you consider it to be greater than 90 degrees, you will be able to again establish a different arrangement or a different lattice mesh, and this lattice mesh will reflect the parallelogram that you observe in the unit mesh. So you have square unit mesh, rectangular unit mesh, a complex rectangular unit mesh, and a parallelogram unit mesh. All this can be established by playing around with the relation between the vectors that you have considered and the angle between them. So what essentially it means is that, again, we are able to ascertain, or we are able to know the positions of the atoms from, or positions of the atom from a given atoms by just considering a couple of vectors and their directions. So this is what it means to have a regular arrangement of the atom. Supposing someone says, okay, I have a crystal with a parallelogram arrangement, then you would be able to theoretically plot or position or imagine the positions of the atoms. Or someone says that I have a complex rectangular crystal, then it will be able, or you will be able to know the arrangement of the atoms in that crystal. So that is that's what we mean by regular arrangement of the atom. So just by characterizing a given arrangement of the atom, just by stating that we have this particular arrangement in a given crystal, you would be theoretically able to identify or determine these positions of the atoms. You will be theoretically able to illustrate these positions of the atom from a given atom. So you will be able to plot, or you will be able to describe the overall lattice points that is corresponding to a crystal just by knowing what are its features or what is its feature. For instance, if you have a complex rectangular crystal, you will be able to create its lattice mesh, you will be able to identify its lattice points, and also you will be able to create its own unit cell or unit mesh rather. Now finally, so far what we have considered is, we have considered the different relation between the magnitudes. We have considered equal magnitude and unequal magnitude. We have considered theta, that is greater, less than 90 degrees. So if we have, say for instance, unequal magnitude of the vectors and the theta is 120 degrees, we have a unique arrangement of the atoms. So in this case, so when you have the magnitudes of the vectors that are different, but the angle is definite. So we have our A vector, we have our B vector, and the angle between them is definite, that is 120 degree. What we ultimately have is arrangements such as these. So whatever we have seen here in the parallelogram, the arrangement will be something similar to it. So the importance of this particular relation is that when you consider 3 unit meshes of this form, so the unit meshes of this form will be something like this. You have your one atom, the other atom, and the other atom. These are separated by 120 degrees, and then you have your atom here and you have your atom here. So this is the unit mesh of this arrangement, wherein the magnitude of the vectors are unequal and the angle between them is 120 degrees. So if you consider a unit mesh and add to it 2 other unit meshes, like we will add 2 other unit meshes to it, then these 2 other unit meshes will be here and here, and there will be one here. So the angle between them is 120 degrees. So if you have a setup like this, so what you ultimately would have is an hexagon-like arrangement. So even though this unit mesh looks similar to that of parallelogram, since we have definite 120 degrees here, it is possible for us to establish or identify an hexagon-like arrangement. So that's the reason we separate this hexagon-like arrangement from the parallelogram here. So this hexagonal arrangement of the atoms helps us separate it from the parallelogram unit mesh. So ideally what we have done so far is that we have considered just 2 vectors and a portion of the atoms, and based on that we have been able to realize different unit meshes. What it means is that we have been able to identify different ways the atoms can be regularly arranged in a crystal, and these different ways are dependent on the magnitude of the vectors and the angle between them. So we will build on it in the subsequent lectures, wherein we will just consider few aspects of the 3 dimension, these aspects in the 3 dimension. So let's see ourselves in the next lecture, wherein we will be considering the regular arrangements in the 3 dimension, since all these have been restricted to 2 dimensional setup. Goodbye.